Hello and welcome to Hawkeye Nation. This is HawkCast, your Iowa football, basketball, and recruiting podcast brought to you by Hawkeye Beacon and Rivals.com. I am your lead analyst and host, Eliot Clough, at Eliot Clough on Twitter, joined as always by managing editor Ross Binder and publisher Adam Jacoby. And that is not my second mess up to start the pod. Already edited that out, so we got two out of the way. Hopefully, we can make it clean the rest of the way. Before we get started, wanted to let you know we have a major deal going on at Hawkeye Beacon right now with promo code Cooper Bowl, all caps Cooper Bowl. You can sign up today and get premium content for free up until spring ball. That's a very short-lived deal that we got going on, limited time only up until the 13th. You can sign up. Get premium content completely free. That's men's basketball recruiting. That's women's basketball recruiting. That's football recruiting. That's intel from behind the scenes with men's and women's basketball and football. All of that there for free till spring ball on Hawkeye Beacon and Iowa.rivals.com. We've got the autofill code there in the description, so you can click that, sign up real quick and easy with us there at Hawkeye Beacon. Also, before we get started, make sure you subscribe here on YouTube, drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify as well. So speaking of Cooper Bowl, that's promo code Cooper Bowl. Philadelphia Eagles fresh off a Super Bowl victory over the Kansas City Chiefs, ending any hope of a three-peat by Pat Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and company. And they looked pretty dominant doing it. And one particular former Hawkeye that made it happen was Cooper DeJean, Otabote, Iowa native, OABCIG. Shout out to the homeschool for me. But making that pick six, 38 yards against arguably the GOAT, returning it for a touchdown to make it a 17-0 lead. And that's really where things were separated. Of course, it's Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Like anything can happen, but that's really that three-score lead is where it really got comfortable for the Eagles. I definitely had a very boisterous reaction when it all happened. I'll tell you guys about that in a second, but Ross, I'll go to you here first. Um, just thoughts on the play, thoughts on Cooper's performance in the Super Bowl.
I mean, I thought he was excellent, and that play in particular was obviously the highlight, and that was just classic Cooper from what I'm sure all Iowa fans remember from watching him play in the Hawkeye defense for 3 years. Just the timing, the anticipation, dropping into the right position, reading the quarterback, and just being right there for the ball. And then of course, when he gets the ball, running with running it back. He's a terror. Like he had three pick sixes. He had two punt return touchdowns. Sorry, said what I said. I believe it. um, and he was just a phenomenal athlete and defensive back, and all of that was on display in that play, and doing it in the biggest possible stage. It's the freaking Super Bowl against the best quarterback of at least the 21st century, Patrick Mahomes, uh, you know, and so just a phenomenal play, great game, and just an unbelievable advertisement for Phil Parker and the Iowa defense.
Yeah, that was what was really impressive to me too, is that not only was Cooper displaying some really high level athleticism, which, obviously everybody knows that he's got that, but the anticipation, the fact that he was in the right place at the right time, um, and forcing a mistake from a guy who never throws a pass that bad, right? Who never misses his guy or gets, the ball picked off 10 yards ahead of his target. And that, like you said, Ross, speaks so much to the level of um, teaching that Phil Parker does that gets these guys prepared to play not only defensive back at Iowa, but at the next level. Because at some point, playing effective defense is less about what the scheme is and what you call, and more about what the player is doing on the field, how they're reading their cues and interpreting that information in the real time, and also just being freakishly athletic like DeJean is too. So that play by him was obviously, the crown jewel of his day, but it was also not his only good play or even good sequence of the game. Earlier he had a three-play sequence where he made an open field tackle for a loss against I can't even remember who he brought down in the open field. But it forced the third and long. Third and long, he's covering Travis Kelce straight up at the line, doesn't let him get free, forces a fourth down. He goes back there to return the punt, takes it, makes a nice little spin move as soon as he catches the ball, doesn't call for a fair catch, quite notably. That one didn't get called back, and turns it into a nice little 12-yard gain. And, 12-yard gain is not the stuff of Super Bowl MVP, but it is 12 yards that the offense doesn't have to get itself, right? It is that much incrementally easier to win the game or score points on that drive because of the way that DeJean was contributing to the game. Uh, Complementary football, some people might call it. But, ultimately, Eliot, like you said, this was so vintage DeJean, going back to his time at Iowa, going back to his time at OABCIG, right? He was playing his way and dominating, and probably the first half MVP of the Super Bowl at that point. He looked
Yeah.
like a full-on gamer, and he was instrumental in helping Philadelphia build that big lead. And then, Hurts obviously took over, obviously earned the Super Bowl MVP, and no reason to be upset about that as Hawkeye fans. But it did just go to show that Cooper's good enough to be in that conversation as a rookie, as a 22-year-old, celebrating his 22nd birthday. Guys, I don't know what you were doing for your 22nd birthday. I didn't get an NFL like Super Bowl trophy. I might have been smoking a cigar. That's about it. That's about the end of the similarities.
I
But
I
yeah, that
was I was drunk in a shitty apartment in Cedar Falls.
I left that part out, but probably that for me too. I was sitting, but that's about it.
Yeah.
uh Regarding, it's a little bit different for me in this regard because like, not that I'm assuming Jay Higgins is going to make that type of play next year, but if Jay Higgins made that play, I'd be excited because I know Jay, and Jay's been really good to the media and just a good dude. His dad's like a great guy. But this is a different thing because I saw Cooper when he was in second grade putting shots up in the rec center in Ida Grove, like he was around our practices when his dad was my middle school track, football, and basketball coach. Um, I've known the family since I was young. I know Jax fairly well. I've talked to Beckett a couple times. Um, and obviously, I mean, the first time we were actually on campus for doing interviews, when we were granted access, I stopped Cooper and I said, "Hey," because I didn't know if he remembered me at all, because the last time we interacted was when he was small. And I just said, "Hey, man, I don't know if you remember me at all. Same high school," and he did recognize me, and we had some conversations and talked to him about, I think, the last athlete to come out of OA or BCIG to make the NFL. His name is AJ Shable. And that was a kid that when I was in third grade, it's like, I want to be like AJ Shable, right? And he made like the practice squad for the Cardinals or the Jets or something. Um, and I asked Cooper as he was preparing for the draft, I was like, I think he was the last one. Have you heard from him at all? And I dropped I was like, I bet you weren't expecting an AJ Shable name drop. Nobody else knows who that is here. Um, and, I exchanged some messages with him before he got drafted, and just let him know that I was proud of him, and just the reaction from from hometown area. And to be quite frank, his repping of the hometown, the home state or school district, the Letterman jacket, the 712 on the cleats. I don't know that I would have done anything like that if I were in his situation, just to be frank. And granted, our hometown experiences were probably very different, but you don't get that type of support when you run cross country very mediocrely. Um, but all of that aside, Cooper has been the almost the epitome of what folks would hope he would be in terms of his humility, in terms of his production, in terms of his growth as a human being. I don't know if you guys have seen interviews of his from when he was in high school to now, he talks like a human being now when he's getting interviewed on camera. So that's one thing that I'd point to, but um,
I mean,
it's a
he's gone from those little small town high school interviews to he was getting interviewed by Scott Van Pelt on Sports Center after
exactly
the Super Bowl on Sunday night.
exactly. So what what I just will say is that I have an incredible source of pride and everybody that I've talked to from OABCIG, both my parents. I mean, my stepdad, I guess, was freaking out when Cooper got the pick and ran it back, and he's never met Cooper. You know, you know. And I was sitting on the couch while Rachel was doing something in the kitchen, and I saw the interception. I said, "Is that Coop? Go, 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 score!" Freaking out, and it was awesome. And I sent a message to Coop and I haven't heard anything back, and I'm not surprised by that at all. He's getting stuff. I mean, like, have you seen the interaction on some of the tweets that he's put out? Like thousands upon thousands of people interacting, liking, retweeting. And I am sure I am very low to the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to responses from Cooper on Instagram. But um, it's a different. I guess what I was getting at referencing Jay is that typically I'd be a little bit more even keel, as a journalist. But this is just different. And it's a very strong sense of pride, not only um for what he did and knowing him a little bit, but for who he is and who he's grown into, and for our hometowns. So I mean, I've been to Otobote a bunch of times. That's where I went to middle school. It is tiny, and I mean, I Ross, I think I can't remember which one of you edited the article. It might have been you, Adam, but I said there are about three things to do in Otobote, and it's play football, farm, and drink beer. And luckily for Iowa fans, Philly fans, Cooper lived in town, if you can say that, of a town of 1,000 people. Wasn't a drinker, and and was pretty damn good at football. Um, and for him to do what he's done, I mean, he scored over 100 touchdowns between his prep, junior, and senior years. Um, and it's almost like not a shock to people what he did in the Super Bowl, because he did it so many times and did it. And I mean, all you have to do is look at his high school film, right?
I was going to say one of the most fun things about him kind of blowing up on the national level has been getting to see a lot more people exposed to that high school film. Because as Iowa fans, we've seen it for years. We saw it when he was coming out of high school, and when he was blowing up at Iowa, it popped up again, and everyone was oohing and ahhing. And now, like, it's like ESPN people and whoever going nuts over that stuff, and it's just cool because I mean they're awesome highlights, and he's a great player. So it's just really fun to see that happening again.
So much
The
for things like small school football not applying to to Big Ten, because he's Big Ten NFL. He's doing literally the exact same things that he did, not to the same degree, not over 100 touchdowns between 2 years at Iowa, when he was seeing regular time on the field, but um, that former small town quarterback doing some pretty impressive things at the big level. And that is why we're running that promo Cooper Bowl. That is why you probably can tell I'm beaming with pride. Uh, it's almost like a full circle moment to be able to write about him too, because growing up in small town Iowa, a lot of people stay around small town Iowa. A lot of people don't see maybe opportunities to move on and to chase dreams, and this is something that Cooper and I are both doing, and to be able to write about him and share it with my family and share it with people from the hometown was really special. So I will get off my soapbox. Adam, I saw you had something to say there.
all I'll say, to try to edge in on your soapbox as well, because I agree. All three of us have been really lucky to be more or less contemporary with great athletes at their high school, like national level athletes who came up at more or less the same time as us. And for me at Roosevelt, it was Lolo Jones, former Olympian hurdler. And like you said, nobody expected Lolo to, come out and wear, repping the 515 or with a Roosevelt, Letterman's jacket. And she didn't. And like, no one was like, where was it? Right. Nobody has those expectations, right? Nobody has to do those things. Had somebody done that, right? Like, had she done that, or had some other TRHS, athlete made it big and rep the blue and white, I would have ascended into space. You, I would be levitating on this podcast as we speak. You would see air under me. And so, one, I'm glad that you are actually still on your chair, Elliot. But two, I get it. Like, we all get it, and I think a whole lot of people who are listening and or watching get it too. Because when you have that personal connection, and then or when you share the same personal connection with the space as somebody who is making it big and making it a lot bigger than um, a lot than most people are ever going to make it big, and they still make sure to represent where they came from and do it proudly, honestly, as as Cooper does, right? That is genuine hometown pride. It's not pandering in any way, shape, or form. How do you not be proud? How do you not say, hell yeah, that person represents me? That person is an example of how good people can be where I come from. It doesn't make me great, but I can be happy about our little community and how it's represented. Everyone wants to see their community represented well. And boy, you could not ask for someone to represent your community, especially a small community, as well as Cooper did and has done. And the fact that he just turned 22. Like he's not he's not the media mogul that Caitlin Clark is by any stretch of the imagination, but this is another Iowa athlete really, really making that leap into like, oh yeah, I can be a national star. I can dominate on this level and I can still be who I came up as. The fact that he's able to sort of follow that role in not quite a as public way, but still find his own strength and his own self through that. It's awesome to see. And anyone from Northwest Iowa should be proud of something like that, I would say.
All right. With only a few minutes left here, well, we got about 15 minutes left, because I gotta hop on a Zoom call with Fran McCaffrey here shortly. But women's basketball last night against Nebraska, pulling off the 81-66 victory over the Cornhuskers. I only got to watch pretty much the first quarter, and it was in and out in the second. From what I saw, Lucy was awesome, and also what I saw on Twitter, officials were terrible. Adam, walk us through it.
Correct and correct. Lucy Olsen had 32 points, best output in a Hawkeye uniform, and was 4 for 7 from deep too. For someone who really struggled from the 3-point line at Villanova, and then the first half of the season at Iowa, going 4 for 7 from deep really, really opens up the rest of her offense. And you saw it on full display against Nebraska because nobody on that roster could stop Olsen's first step. And when they sold out to do it, she just hit a three over them. And Jan Jensen even said after the game that when Olsen is playing with that sort of confidence, that sort of style, that swag, that openness, that, the way that you would want a point guard to play, it elevates Iowa as a team as a result. And it was very obvious to see that. And especially for this team, the way that they basically collapsed in the fourth quarter against Nebraska when they played at Carver. And this is the one team on the schedule that they get twice because the Big Ten has metastasized to 18 teams. So they get the one. They had to do it in Lincoln, and they smoked them. That was not a competitive game in the last 15 minutes. Once Iowa got over the hump of the awful refereeing, once Taylor McCabe realized, hey, I'm in my home state, it's time to bomb these kids. Iowa really opened it up, really should have been dominating or at the very least up by double digits for most, if not the entire second half. But again, The officiating was a random number generator with a whistle, and Iowa was, got the worst of the calls, some of the phantom ones, but you could see by some of the calls that, Nebraska, they weren't doing this to help Nebraska. The refs weren't. They're just not good. And I don't know how you make refs better. Everyone's like, well, hire better ones. From where? LinkedIn? Or refjobs.com? Like, I get that.
Uh,
I get that this is a tough problem, and this is why I hate like complaining about the referees, but this was borderline unwatchable, and the Big Ten ought to figure something out. So, and I don't have that answer. It's not my job to have that answer. I'm glad I don't have to have that answer because it's a whole lot easier to complain about than to like try to figure out how to fix. But what happened on that court was pretty flatly unacceptable. And the nice thing is, and the Big Ten can thank Iowa for this, the game was not close enough for it to actually affect who was going to win or lose that game. And so to that extent, the referees did their job because the better team won and should have won. And that's the sum total of the nice things I can say about the referees, that they didn't turn a 15-point game all the way around. That's it. That's it. Ross, I mean, when you see something like that and you see how viscerally fans react to it, I don't know, like, what do you think about one, players having to go through that sort of adversity, but two, like what it says about, I guess, the Big Ten, that this is going to be part of the value proposition, I guess you would say, for women's basketball.
It's frustrating. It's really frustrating, and I'm saying that as an observer.
Mhm.
So my frustration level is something that pales in comparison to the players and the coaches because it's their livelihood. They're doing this to try and win games and compete in the Big Ten, and to, maintain jobs, to, contend for championships and all that. And it's grossly unfair for them to, have to deal with everything that goes along with, that pursuit. And on top of that, oh yeah, here's some just horrendously absurd officiating that's, calling fouls almost at random, although certainly focused more on Iowa's bigs, it felt like. And it's a level of unfairness and just a complication that shouldn't exist. Like the basketball itself should be the toughest thing they have to overcome. They should have to, worry about Nebraska making shots and, playing good defense or something. They shouldn't have to worry about, well, what I can't do anything because this official might call a foul because I looked at the player funny or something, practically. Like it was just ridiculous officiating. Again, it's so tired to complain about the officiating after a game, because it's such a cliche. And like you mentioned in your recap, like there was bad officiating both ways. It wasn't a screw job for Nebraska. It was general incompetence that favored Nebraska a bit more than Iowa, but there was not there was not good officiating one way and bad the other for sure. So yeah, it's when something like that happens, you just don't want it to affect the game, and it didn't because Iowa won comfortably, won by 15, should have won by at least 25 probably if the officiating was a little bit more straightforward probably. Because Iowa was just shooting the lights out in that, especially the second half. Like whenever it looked like, oh, Nebraska's going to try and make a run here, it's like, nope, they're not. Here's Lucy with another mid-range jumper. Here's Taylor McCabe with another three. It's like they are not getting any closer, and that persisted until the end. Eliot, you got something to add?
I have a couple questions, and maybe just thoughts for you guys, regarding what can be done about officiating. Because I know there's an issue, or there was an issue, I think in the NFL, maybe not the NBA, but in the NFL, that officials were not full time. I'm assuming these officials in the NCAA are full time. I'm not privy to that information. They're not. They're not. Okay.
No,
No,
oh no.
Because what I'm thinking about with men's
Ed
basketball.
Hightower, Ed Hightower was a principal for years, wasn't he? Or
Yeah, wasn't Rick Hartzell a referee too? The former UNI AD?
could be.
Or somebody like in the UNI brass was also a referee, which
Couldn't
not a
tell you.
conflict of
Yeah,
in the
not a
slightest.
conflict, not even a little bit. I'm curious about that. Is it different for the men and the women? Because I know High Knees is officiating a game like every night, so I don't know if he's just getting overtime or what, what that's looking
I,
like.
I think that is a real, problem and something that, potentially the NCAA or, there's somebody should try to fix, which is that, yeah, I don't think this is a full-time job for officials. And without that, in a lot of cases, and without that, it does get really hard to, find and retain good people, and also probably to hold them accountable, if they're not performing at a acceptable level. If it's, you're scrambling to get anybody to do this and you're, part-time gig, it's like, well, thanks, we got somebody at least. So yeah, it's a bad deal, especially with the just tremendous amounts of money in college sports. You think you could allocate a little bit of that towards officiating and making that part of the product better.
There are
That's what's always surprised me, that the Big Ten hasn't said, "Hey, look, we make 9 digits a year off TV revenue. We can't throw a little bit about at just completely overhauling what refereeing means." Like the Big Ten is a television company that also just like puts on sports, and it still has its referees trying to review, like, one, just stopping the game completely so they can review something, and then doing it on a screen that's like smaller than our laptops in front of us. And it's like something can be overhauled here. Like if you want the Big Ten to be the most like premier, legit, blue-blooded conference, if you really want the Big Ten to compete with the SEC and have an upper hand over the SEC, which is what this is turning into in case the Big Ten hasn't noticed, overhaul the referees. Do something insane like buy out the NBA's referees. And I know people say, "Oh, well, the NBA, blah, blah, blah. They're better than the Big Tens." Guarantee you that much. And at the very least, they're the best ones in basketball that you can hire. Go do it. Throw money at them. Make it a priority. Overhaul what they have to do to call the game. Like make it more technology friendly. Do something. And also shout out to Lucas 80 on the thread, because I was kind of on the premium thread that we were describing during the game. I was like, "Who are you going to hire him from?" And I told him, like, I'm not trying to crap on the idea, but I think like the only place that you can hire better referees from.
So
well, I'm assuming he was just going to continue to reiterate his point of the
let's
best place
poach
you can.
let's poach refs from the NBA.
Yeah, right. The issue in my mind, and I know officiating is largely contingent on conferences, but that's a lot of money. One,
Mhm,
a lot of money if you make these guys full time, because you're
mhm.
talking benefits, you're talking all of that extra stuff while also paying for their travel. Um, and two, there's a lot of referees in college basketball, so that's a lot of money, right?
Yeah, it is.
Plus revenue sharing is being involved now. So how much of that money is going to be available to be allocated to officials? I don't know. Like these are intricacies. I didn't major in math and I hated math in high school. That's why I did communications. So th this is something that's beyond my reach, but we
Well,
are
I
we
was
are
an econ major, and I don't have any access to the Big Ten's numbers either. So I'm just going to make them up and decide that they're going to work. That's what economist, work actually is. So economics is the word I was looking for. Yeah. Um, to actually bring this back to the basketball, I think that we need to really talk a little bit more about how well Lucy Olsen played, not only last night getting 32 points, but just how instrumental she has been in Iowa's turnaround after, going from a 5 game losing streak to a 5 game winning streak. Rob Howe from Hawkeye Nation, shout out to Rob, one of the nicer dudes on the beat. Um, Posted some stats from Iowa's 5 game skid and then the 5 game winning streak, and specifically Lucy Olsen's. So when Iowa was going 0 for 5, Lucy was scoring 12 points a game, 33% from the field, 55% from the free throw line, um, 4 assists, and about 3.5 turnovers a game. That is not what you need your best player, your best point guard to do. Since the winning streak started, 22 points a game, 55% from the field, 48% from three, 72%, not great from the free throw line, but it's better than 55. 6.5 assists a game. Turnovers have not risen, and her steals are up to 1.6 a game. That is a complete turnaround. And that is how you go from barely losing to barely winning. And for her to be doing that against upper level competition, we're talking about 3 consecutive games against tournament projected teams. Iowa won them all. There was also a road game against Washington, who's also in that bubble mix too. Like this was a difficult stretch of basketball for Iowa, and they won all 5 games, and they can thank Lucy Olsen for that, among many other people. Like, not her exclusively, but you see that turnaround from the point guard. You see the effect that it has, trickling down on the rest of the team. And you especially saw it against Nebraska when nobody could no defender could stay in front of Olsen, breaks down the defense, creates open perimeter shots for the likes of Taylor McHaven. All of a sudden, everything that looked janky and broken about Iowa's offense starts to look a little bit better. Ross, does this just look like a more fun team to watch now during this winning streak, even aside from the wins and losses?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, when they were struggling in that losing streak, it was just, the offense was really stuck and they weren't really able to move the ball effectively. They weren't, really getting a lot of good shots. They certainly weren't making shots. And now things are just moving a lot more smoothly. Like Lucy is, she is the catalyst for this team, and she was, really struggling in that losing streak, and now she's picked it up and playing a lot better. And it's, carried over to the rest of the team. And yeah, that the whole unit just looks much more confident, much more in sync, and it's resulting in this 5 game winning streak. And it's just been far, far more entertaining to watch.
Join us now at Hawkeye Beacon promo code Cooper Bowl. That's all caps. Cooper Bowl, no space. Get all of our premium content for free until spring ball. Don't miss it. Limited time only. Ends on the 13th. You can click that autofill code. It's going to be right at the top of the description, either on podcast or YouTube, wherever you're listening. Just click that. Sign up. Super quick and easy. Again, that's promo code Cooper Bowl. Limited time only.
It is the perfect Valentine's Day gift for your family, loved ones. It's the gift that keeps on giving because it's information, right? It's access. So sign up. Free until spring ball. New subscribers only. You will not regret it. Promo code Cooper Bowl.
Men's and women's basketball recruiting, football recruiting, inside intel on men's and women's basketball, football, etc. We appreciate you tuning in to this episode of HawkCast, brought to you by Iowa.Rivals.com. If you're not a premium subscriber yet, do it today, Iowa.Rivals.com/subscribe, or just click that autofill link down there in the bottom and get premium code. And do not forget, subscribe here on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, etc. Drop a like, drop a comment on YouTube. We greatly appreciate it, and it helps us out a ton. So please go ahead and do that. It's greatly appreciated. For now, I am Eliot Clough at Eliot Clough on Twitter, joined by Ross Binder and Adam Jacoby. We will see you next time.